I think that I think about drawing every day. A lot of that just comes from, I'll see different art pieces and I'll be like, oh, that's interesting. I like that. Maybe I want to try and do something like that. I started drawing because I think it was just something that I just naturally picked up doing. I don't really have like a moment where I'm like, I'm gonna start drawing or something like that. Like, it's just something that happens. And then, I didn't feel like I was terrible right at the start. I think that I still experienced the frustration that any artist does, but I wouldn't say that I was like born with any exceptional skill. And I've always thought that drawing or doing art is more of a question of practice than of like natural genius. Inspiration for me really came from Avatar: The Last Airbender and The Legend of Korra. I'd like to tell people that I learned to draw from watching Avatar and Korra, because I think that I learned a lot of things about like drawing people and drawing faces and drawing expressions from watching that show and looking at the art from that show. And the same thing for like reading comic books and stuff. A lot of my understanding of like drawing people in action or just trying to draw people's anatomy realistically has come from those two things. I was really drawn into the art of Korra and Avatar when I was younger because of how clean the art is, and I think that some of my love of the art was that it was easy for me to kind of grab onto certain things from that style and learn how to draw that myself. I really think that I developed a lot as an artist during that time where I was watching those shows, just because there were things that I would notice and how the animators did things that I would be like, that was interesting, I want to try and do that. So a lot of my love of that art just comes from the fact that it's kind of some of my own developmental roots as an artist. For me, art in general, and specifically visual art, is about trying to translate an abstract idea into something that's a little bit more concrete. So whether this is ideas of family or suffering or other things like that, things that belong more in the metaphysical realm of thinking, art is trying to take that and create a physical sort of medium which people interact with their eyes, with their thoughts, by talking about it with other people in a way that makes those sorts of things more understandable or more clear, and that can help people to have a better understanding of those sorts of ideas.
My name is Caleb, I'm 14, and I have 49 pets. I've been in quarantine for a month. Since I've been stuck at home, I've been very bored. It's been not much of anything. When I was first stuck at home, I started playing lots and lots of video games. It was about 7 hours a day. I became very bored. Recently, I spent a lot of time taking care of my pets. Before it was more like a chore, but now it's pretty fun. I've had animals most of my life. This is where I spend a lot of my time with the ducks, turkeys, and chickens, and yeah, that's their coop, and that's their pen. It's fun to come out here. You go get the eggs. There's chicken eggs, duck eggs, and turkey eggs, and bantam eggs. The bantam eggs are like that small, and it's It's fun. Some of them will be cracked, some of them will be like not cracked. And there's egg boxes, that's what the chickens lay in. The turkeys and ducks, they just lay 'em wherever. I love having lots of animals, it's fun. That's helped me not be bored during quarantine.
Stormo is based in Grand Rapids. We primarily play in house shows in people's basements, and the bands that we play with are often, they describe themselves as lo-fi indie type bands. We just released an EP. It's called Stormo, and I am really excited about it. It's very good to finally have put music out there. Stormo's kind of been a band that didn't have music out for a really long time, but people had only heard our live sets. Originally, we had planned to have a release show on April 10th. There were going to be 3 bands playing, and yeah, we were looking forward to that. It was going to be really fun. We were going to sell all of our tapes, get some t-shirts, but you know, as the day got closer and closer, coronavirus got progressively more serious, so we weren't able to do the release show. We did end up doing a little live stream on Facebook. Interesting times to do live music, for sure.
Shut you out, no need to pout, like you better not. So
It's less cool to get together and jam. It's illegal, I guess. But hopefully we can get on a grind of sending voice memos, putting parts on top of it, collaborating through email, texts, all of that stuff.
yeah.
The gaming stereotype is usually for older people. They think, oh, they're overweight, sitting in their basement doing nothing all day, not going outside, eating chips and Mountain Dew, thinking they're the laziest people on the planet. When in reality, I think once you get to know a lot of people, since a lot of people game nowadays, and a lot of people are into gaming, and it's a normal thing among kids, I think people are finally starting to realize that gaming is more than just sitting and doing nothing. There's a lot of things you can do with gaming, such as connect with other people. It's a hobby, and it's just crazy to think that people think it's just this generalized, oh, they're fat, they sit in their basement doing nothing all day, which is not true. I moved to Langsburg 5 years ago, had to make a ton of new friends, and using gaming, I've been able to keep in touch with one of my best friends for 5 years now, and we're still great friends, and it's amazing to see that's happening. It's a really great way to keep in touch with everybody. I do miss my friends. They really helped me get through school because I get really frustrated with school. And my friends really helped me just keep going, and just sitting down at the lunch table and having horrible cafeteria food, but being with friends was always very fun. And I really miss my after-school activities such as drama. I really like acting, and it's really sad to be done with it now. My brothers and I, when we were kids, we would always play games together on our PlayStation 2. So now there are PlayStation 4s and Xbox Ones and Nintendo Switches, most of them with party chats where you can talk to each other, so we can play all of our favorite games together online and talk to each other at the same time, so it connects us in that way. Recently I've been able to, on a mass scale, play with a lot of different people, and it's a way that I like to keep in touch with other people.
I truly believe that if God thinks you're ready, He will give it to you. I first met Mikey through the app. It's called Bumble. It's a dating app. He was visiting with his family here in Japan, and then he asked me out, and then we met in Shibuya. We only met for that dinner, and then the next day, I think he had to fly out to LA. So from that day, we never stopped talking. I think we continued to stay in contact. At first, obviously, like when we were still talking, because we've only like met once, I was very skeptical, but I owed it to myself to take that chance to explore whatever I was feeling with him. So I just looked at the people around me, and the best example that dawned on me, that both of my parents did long distance relationship for almost 20 years. So if they can do it, then I feel like I should be able to just at least give it a shot. So I did. Like, our time difference is 16 hours, and there's only a short period of time where we could actually just, speak to each other. But in terms of like with quarrels and stuff, with fighting, because of the time difference, it's definitely harder to communicate. When he decided to come visit me back to Tokyo, he already had planned to propose to me. So the dating and the proposal really happened in a short span of time, maybe like 5 months. And then since then, we've been engaged. As soon as we got engaged, actually, we've planned to apply for my visa to go to the States, right? And then since then, we've been like kind of waiting for the processing of if our case would be approved or not. During those times, obviously, like there's this like normal anxiety of not knowing where it's gonna go, or like, if you're gonna be denied or you're gonna be approved. But I think ultimately, because we had so much faith in God, and we really believed that if it was really in His will to bring me to the States or for us to be together, then it will happen. So, and it was by surprise that, one night Mike was just checking his emails and opened this, email from the embassy, and he saw that our case is already approved.
People forget the benefits of exercise and why they exercise in general. It's not just the physical, but it's mainly the mental, and that's what can really be helpful during this time. My name is Noelle Klimek. I'm a senior at Olivet Nazarene University. I graduated in about 4 weeks. The coronavirus has definitely affected me a lot recently. I had to moved back home, moved back to Michigan. All of it is closed for the rest of the semester, so basically I'm done with college now, so that's definitely been a shift. Daily life in general has changed. Obviously it's quarantine, so we can't really go anywhere. We're kind of stuck in the house. For my job, I'm a fitness planner, so that's a personal trainer. I work with students, faculty, and staff, and I'm still in touch with them virtually, but it's also been hard because their main motivation was working out in gyms, working out with people. To them, at-home workouts is like the last thing they ever wanted to do, and now it's the only thing they can do. But we've been trying to push past that. I think this is something that's really interesting that quarantine is bringing out, because a lot of people, they think that they don't have any options for workouts, and that's just because they're not used to working out at home, but they don't realize how many options are around them. They're just not used to doing it. You have a carton of water, and that right there is a perfect weight. You have a chair, and they don't realize how many exercises you can do just with chairs. You have a staircase in your house. People don't realize there's so many options for things that you could do with the stuff around you. They're just not used to doing it. There's so much you can do outside that people just aren't used to doing because they're used to having a gym to facilitate it. So a lot of that is breaking the mental barriers that people have and opening their eyes to the more ideas they have. The advice that I would give to people about staying fit and exercising during quarantine, one would be to remember the motivation and remember the importance of it. Just knowing the benefits that you get. It's not just about how you look or your body, it's the mental aspects, and I think that's what a lot of people need and a lot of people are struggling with. I think that during quarantine, having this time where my daily life is so disruptive and it's so different than what I was used to, having workouts and still getting active and getting myself moving is still one of the biggest things that's really helping me through this time. The virus has taken a lot from me, but what it hasn't taken is my ability to keep my clients and myself motivated to stay strong, both physically and mentally, while still staying safe.
Hey, my name's Courtney, and in 2017, I studied abroad in Germany. Like most people, I've been spending a lot of time in the house for the last month or so. And during this time, I've started to wonder what exactly it is that makes the place home. So I reached out to some friends who studied abroad in Germany with me to ask them what home means to them now that they've lived on both sides of the Atlantic.
I would say that home is where the people are who make you feel comfortable, make you feel welcome.
This is Brianna. In 2017, she studied abroad in Hessen. Now, she lives there.
Home is whatever you want it to be, really. It's wherever you feel most comfortable.
And this is Eliza. She spent her 2017 in a little town near Hamburg. And if it wasn't for coronavirus, she'd be studying in Germany right now.
Just finding your own space and making it your home, it's like a completely different kind of home in a way.
After making a place your home, it's hard to leave.
After that first year of exchange, it was like not even a question that I was gonna go back. It was it was when, how, and how much money.
At some point when I was in the United States, I had some really big fights with my extended families. I realized wow, okay, I have people who are across the world that would be there for me, and I can't even depend on my own family for things.
But that doesn't mean that staying is easy.
You have to connect to one part of your life and then disconnect from the other. And you have to keep those two lives apart.
After coming back home, you realize that a part of you was left over there.
But regardless of the ups and downs, the journey is still well worth it.
Before, you had no idea what was going to happen. You had no preconceived notion of you ever creating a new home. You're just kind of like, I'm just going to go over there and see what happens. And then when you're over there, you just unknowingly create these bonds and create these memories that slowly morph into you creating a home.
You could have told me that my family was born and raised in the country, and honestly, I'd believe you. Living on a farm has been such a big part of our life, and it has come second nature to all of us. I mean, my parents, they had a country-themed wedding. That's why as a kid, I kind of found it hard to believe that my family was born and raised in the city. In the 80s, my grandparents, Don and Elaine Heiduch, decided to retire and move to the country. They packed up their bags and moved from their home in Detroit to a small farm in Brockway, Michigan. Their son, David, my father, decided to move with them to help them build their house.
I'm proud of this house that my dad and my brother built. It's a beautiful house.
Yeah, when we bought the property, there was nothing here. It was just open field. There was not even any trees. So that's kind of a neat thing, is actually watching something get built and created. A pile of lumber from nothing, planting little seedlings, to having them now be trees that you can't get your arms around. That's very fulfilling to nurture the ground and the plants, and to see that all grow out here. When I moved out from Detroit out here, I planned on staying out here to raise my family. It was really rewarding watching, the place grow alongside my family.
When David and I got married, we decided to build a barn on the property for our reception. That way the barn that we built would be able to be used permanently on the property. That commitment, along with wanting to start a family, led us to the decision of building our own house on the property. I'm very proud of the opportunity that I had to help build the house that I live in with my parents right now. It was such an honor to go through the same thing that my dad went through in the 80s when building the first house on this property. When my family moved out here in the 80s, there was nothing. It was just a field. And to now have 2 houses and a farm, it's a great honor to our family. And it means a lot to us. It's a big part of who we are. When my grandparents decided to move out here, they made a big cultural change in our family. They turned a family of city dwellers into a family of farmers.
Yeah, I believe my parents were happy with the decision to move out here, and they would be proud of the family we raised out here in the country.
Starting a farm is a lot like starting a family, in that it can grow to something greater than you could have ever imagined. And when my grandparents moved out here, they did both.
Hi, my name is Caden and I'm a home cook. I started to learn to cook around 2013 when I was about 10 or 11. I learned to cook the normal way with my parents and grandparents and just getting in the kitchen and cooking with them. The people who have been an inspiration to me have inspired me by just getting me in the kitchen, whether it be parents and grandparents just wanting to cook with me, or with the proper chefs having readily available videos and recipes that I've wanted to try making myself. One of the more difficult skills to learn is substituting ingredients, which I'm still not good at. My favorite dish to make is stir fry because it's quite simple to make and very delicious. Well, this one's like a 2-for-1. It's an easy and hard dish, and it is a sunny side up egg. At first, when you're just trying to get the timing down right and everything, it is a very hard dish to make and one that's easy to mess up. But then once you have the timing and feeling down for it, It is clockwork. It is very easy to make. I've grown from when I first started. It's not a clear growth to me, at least, because it's not like I could compare myself to back in 2013, but I would say I've grown more efficient and more comfortable in the kitchen. I would reflect my personality in dishes by adding in different spices or ingredients that I think will improve the dish. What I would say is the most meaningful part of my culinary journey is being able to cook with my parents and grandparents. What I could take away from my culinary journey so far is the ability to cook itself, which is a very useful life skill to have and something ladies love.
Mom, what's your favorite meal that you make for the family?
I tried shrimp scampi for the first time from scratch, and it was excellent.
Mom, what if you're stuck in the house by yourself during this pandemic? Which movie or TV show the cast is stuck in a house with you? Who will you pick?
Does it has to be a movie or TV show?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I love a musical, and my favorite musical is Newsies, and that was made into a movie, so does that count?
Yes.
Okay, so it has to be the cast of Newsies, because we could sing and dance, and I would have so much joy.
Dad, what do you do when you get home from the store?
I get home from the store?
Yeah.
Store? I take all the stuff out of the car and I put it in the garage, and then some of the stuff has got to go in like the refrigerator or the freezer, and a lot of that stuff, like I have wipes, and I wipe that off before I put it in the refrigerator and the freezer. And the rest of the stuff we usually let just sit out there in the garage for a couple days or a while. 2 or 3 days, and unless we really need something, then we'll go out there and wipe it off with a wipe and then bring it in the house. Okay?
Caroline, well, how do you feel about the social distance?
I'm really sad that we can't do the classes in person anymore and that I can't see any of my friends face to face, but I do think that social distancing is really important for fighting this virus. And I can still see a lot of my friends online, virtually through Zoom and other things. So it's all right.
Caroline, how are you staying exercised?
So I'm staying active by going on lots of walks with my dog and doing a lot of online dance workouts.
The second is this: love your neighbor as yourself. There is no commandment greater than these. I attended Calvin College. I have 3 children, 2 sons and a daughter, and my wife, Ruth. We had an interest in China because we adopted our daughter from China 4 days before she turned 1 year old. So we traveled to China, and we had a very nice time in China. And we had a wonderful trip, and we took our little daughter home. I think because we were so interested in China, that when we had an opportunity to have the 2 girls stay with us for the summer, we thought this would be very nice. We had 2 girls from Chengdu that stayed with us for the summer. And that was like a program, and we had a chance to have 2 girls, young teenagers, I think they were maybe 13 and 14, from Chengdu, that spent the summer with us.
We had already adopted Katie. She was probably 3 or 4 when the girls came. They went to school, they were involved in our family. If we went cherry picking, they would go cherry picking. They just were part of our family.
We took them to the beaches, and we had a very nice time with them. They took some very interesting spices from Chengdu and made a nice meal for us one night. We prayed at mealtime, we read the Bible at mealtime, we went to church on Sundays. We didn't change our lifestyle at all.
I'm living with Mr. and Mrs. Polar. I know them through their daughter Katie, who was teaching me in China, and I really need to say that they helped me a lot. I'm like most of the IP students at Calvin. First time being abroad, studying in a different country, far away from home, traveling alone, doing all these crazy things. I believe that many people would be afraid or nervous, and I'm lucky to have such a kind host here. I really appreciate that there are lots of families trying their best to help students like me.
It's always nice to share your home with people from other countries. So
in today's isolated world, everything is different than before. For me, returning home from Michigan to Texas ended up being a month-long journey, and I lost most of my day-to-day structure. I ended up becoming highly curious about routine and how small things can greatly shift your entire day. I started to rely heavily on waking up at the same time and going for a run. My original plan for this video was to show the importance of routine and have my dad as an example. Since he wakes up at 4 a.m. and does the same thing every morning, I thought this would be perfect. But afterwards, I realized that routine is highly individual and looks a lot different because of the pandemic. Having a single example didn't really show the full story that I wanted to tell. So I decided to scrap everything and start over. I ended up interviewing a bunch of college students and asked them to take me through their day and share what small things they're doing to give structure and purpose in the middle of the pandemic. And although there were some similarities, I found out that no 2 people were really the same. When it came to the morning, I found that there was a lot of similarities.
I usually wake up. I get up around 7:30 because my cat gets me up.
I'll get up, brush my teeth, and eat some breakfast.
I eat breakfast. I usually make an egg of some sort. Sometimes it'll be egg sandwich, sometimes it'll be scrambled eggs.
Making myself a cup of coffee, brushing my teeth, and just making sure to get out of my pajamas.
But as the day went on, this was when routines really started to differ.
I usually go to the nature park and walk laps there. I'll go and run around the park just to do something active.
Since I live on a farm, one of my routines is always feeding the animals. So that always has to happen every day. Get up in the morning, feed the fish, and then at some point during the day, feed the chickens and the sheep. So that's something that consistently happens every day and gives some sort of structure.
Whenever I just have a little bit of time, I think that music is something that really helps me kind of focus instantly on one thing, because the world is pretty hectic sometimes. So just taking a couple minutes, just sit and think and just kind of relax and disengage.
Me and my mom will have lunch together, and then we'll go walk around somewhere. So recently we've like walked around like our village, or like we'll go on a small hike, but typically like just to get outside every day right now, we sort of have a routine of like after lunch we go out and we do some sort of hike, which has been really fun.
For the day, I bike between 2 and 4, depending on the weather.
I make sure to go upstairs. My parents and my brother are working, so I like to do little breaks here and there to annoy them.
I like to go out for a run whenever I'm like tired of doing work and stuff, just to relax and stuff. Or maybe go play basketball or something like that.
Routines are important in that they decrease stress, improve sleep, and can better your overall mental health. However, routines look a lot different than a couple of months ago, and it can be difficult to find something that works. It takes trial and error to discover what does and doesn't work for you. Whether it's going for a run or drinking a cup of coffee, something small like a routine can give us something to look forward to and help us get from day to day.
I never met my great-grandmother. Everything I know about her comes from the photos and the memorabilia and the stories I have heard over the years.
Yeah, I got a story I always tell where I met her. One time I went for a ride. There's a creek called Buttermilk Creek, and she was just walking across the creek, and you picked up girls because the girls walked on the sidewalk. This is Hudsonville, way out in the boondocks. But anyway, I stopped, and behold, she went for a ride with me. I told her right when I saw her, I'm going to marry you.
Growing up, I only knew little things about her, like how wonderful her recipe for strawberry shortcake was, or her extensive collection of depression glass dishes.
My mom was a stay-at-home mom, very busy, very active in a lot of church organizations and other things.
A few months ago, I saw for the first time footage of my great-grandmother from the 1950s and 60s.
The films have been hanging out in my basement for quite a few years, so we finally decided to send a few of them in and see if we could get them digitized.
Watching over the videos for me was like seeing her for the first time, not just the version of her from pictures or from stories, but the real her.
The videos were taken in the late 50s and during the 60s, and my aunt, who came to all of our family functions and always had her camera ready, took lots of movies. It was really fun for me to watch a video of my mom, who had passed away several years ago, on a tire swing, and young and full of life as I remember her from my childhood, always joking around and smiling and laughing. But she was the person that everybody called when anything happened, and then she relayed the information to everybody else. A much more time-consuming task than sending everybody an email. It was kind of fun as a kid because I always knew what was going on, and we seemed to be kind of at the center of things. And even though I have plenty of pictures of her, it's not quite the same.
It's easy to feel disconnected from your family's past, but these videos have made me feel just a little bit closer to my great-grandmother, even though I never met her.
I didn't think about her as not being Asian. After we started liking each other and started dating is when we got reactions from other people, is when we started thinking, oh, this isn't normal, I guess. Maybe we should have reservations about it. I think my parents were expecting that I marry another Korean, and so I think it was out of love, but they did try to break us apart. So after having gone through all that, it made us even more secure, or more affirmed that this was the person I'm supposed to be with.
Yeah, because we would always say, why would we go through all that and all the hardship and extra tears and trouble of that relationship if God didn't mean for us to be together? then why would we have put up with all that? Because we did put up with a lot through it. And again, it didn't come from a bad place. It came from love and concern, and yes, some ignorance on the part of both of our sides, but it just made us stronger and more affirming that God meant for us to be together. Once everybody knew we were together, and once they could see that we were serious, and certainly once we were engaged, all of that changed, because at that point, they just wanted us to be successful. They saw that we were committed, and so they wanted to commit to our relationship as well, and wanted us to make it work. So I think even though it was hard, all of that stopped. Well, the very first thing was after I had Andrew, my oldest, the nurses would come to bring him, while we were at the hospital, in to me, and they would look at his tag on him, and they would look at my tag, and they look at us, and they just couldn't figure out that this little Asian-looking baby, because he came out looking very much like him, actually, that I was the mom. And at first it was funny, and then it actually started to annoy me. And they'd come in with him, and I'd be like, give me my baby. Yes, he's mine, you know? We've also had people, again, especially with Andrew, just assume that he's adopted. Even with Dad with me, they would say things like, oh, you know, when did you get him? And that sort of thing.
But we've treated it as funny.
We just laugh about it.
And they don't know how it is, how great it is. So.
Yeah.
And how blessed we are.
Yeah.
And back then, I don't think anybody realized where America was headed. Back then on TV, you didn't see any interracial relationships. And now it's, pretty very common now.
Yeah.
But back then we were a novelty, definitely. We were definitely trendsetters.
I just think that Dad and I are thrilled that in society today, we are no longer this oddity, that we definitely are part of the norm there, and we notice that. We look around and we're like, wow, there's a lot of couples who look just like us, a lot of families who look just like us. And in addition, on TV and on commercials and all those sort of things, we're very aware now when we look and we go, hey, look, there's an Asian guy and a white woman who are together in that commercial. And we would never have seen that and had examples of that years ago when we first got married.
That's Pastor Mark Van Stee, a man who, after a really successful business career, made a decision that was, well, I'll let him tell you.
Some people thought it was crazy.
So what could this middle-aged suburban pastor have possibly done that people thought was so crazy? Well, let me show you.
Where did you go this morning? Yeah.
That's me, except 15 years younger and with a British accent. And behind the camera, that's my dad, Mark Van Stee, the managing director at a logistics company in London, England.
I had always known that Mark might be interested in changing careers. It had been a discussion on and off for, the 15 years of our marriage.
I had this fantastic career, fantastic job, fantastic company. Everything was fantastic.
Fantastic is an understatement. To give you some context, we lived a couple blocks away from Ozzy Osbourne.
But yet, something inside me still felt called to be a pastor.
So that was it. We packed up our stuff. My dad followed his call, and we moved across the ocean from London back to the States. And it all went smoothly, well, except for one thing.
So as it turned out, Mark got accepted to seminary on the same day that I found out we were pregnant with Amelia.
So yeah, my parents' stressful situation got more stressful.
Grand Rapids, Michigan. August 24th, 2005. Within our first few months of arriving in Michigan, our daughter was born prematurely, and that was very stressful.
Mark was in his first semester while I was on bed rest, and he was trying to do seminary as fast as humanly possible so that he could get in and out in 3 years. So they decided that the day after Thanksgiving, we needed to have a cesarean section.
And then also my mother was diagnosed with brain cancer at the exact same time. And in fact, the day our daughter was born, my mother had surgery for brain cancer.
I didn't realize it at the time, but that winter was really tough for my parents. My grandma ended up passing away, and Amelia was allowed to come home, but we couldn't have anyone in our house in order to keep her healthy. But my dad managed to keep up with school, and after 3 years, he graduated, which meant two things. First, he could finally do what he had felt called to do for all those years, and second, it was time for us to move again.
My criteria were much about like just impact. Would this be a place I could make an impact?
That place? Western Springs, Illinois, where he's been ever since.
I've had 11 years here, I think, of fruitful ministry, and I do feel it's a place where God has been able to use me.
When my dad tells the story of his redeployment, as he calls it, people will often jokingly ask him, what's next? But if you really understand why my dad made his career change, then I think you'll understand why that's not such a crazy question.
If I'm redeployed again, that's fine. I feel very used by God in what I'm doing now, and who knows? He may lead me to do something else, related, unrelated. I hope to always be doing something for God and His kingdom.
Falconry is my last identity of the old Dan. 2007, I had 4 strokes, and I previously wanted to get in falconry, and I met this lady that was doing it. She says, well, you have a job, you have a wife, house, you can't do it because they take all your requirements. So I said, well, guess I'm not doing that. But then when I got my strokes, I thought, man, Dan, if you're gonna do it, now would be the time.
Before, it was just like something he's always wanted to do. A real passion of his, because he's always been like the top guy for anything with hunting, fishing, anything wildlife.
5 years ago, I got meningitis and I was in the hospital, and it was tough. Thought I was gone for a while. And then a few months after that, I got back-to-back rear-end car accidents, which gave me traumatic brain injury.
Before TBI, my dad was more high energy. He was kind of like the go-to man if you needed anything done. His TBIs really kind of throw him off his game, and it gets him down a lot. But he still pushes hard and does everything he can do.
Falconry is using bird of prey to hunt. It's a team sport, and it's hard work, and you can go wrong in so many ways, but when you achieve it and the team works flawlessly, it's like poetry in motion. This is Smoke, he's my male Harris, Jade, who's a female Harris, and Jet, my red tail. He is the finder of the game, and he's got a nose, and he runs back and forth, and then when he finds scent, he locks. And then the hawks have seen it so often, so when he points, they all get ready because they know game is underfoot. He's my service dog. He helps me 2 ways. One is when I lose my balance, he helps me get up. I have emotional issues, so I get angry and frustrated, and he paws me and breaks that thought cycle. And he does such a good job. I can't be the falconer I was, but I'm still doing it because it takes your mind off headaches and it gets you outdoors. I love it.
And now, apart from it being that hobby, it's also sort of his source of confidence, I would say. Typically, when he gets back from a successful hunt, he is in high spirits and, bragging about how the hunt went, and so excited to see how the hawks and the dog work together.
The TBI program actually nominated me for their Night of Reflections, and they want me to share my story because they said it's inspiring. I'm like, I'm just being Dan.
Life was good. We had a great family, a nice home. We had a lot of laughs, no worries. We didn't realize that it could all be taken away at once. Back in 2012, my family went out of town for my daughter's soccer tournament in Indianapolis. We were there a couple nights when Sunday morning we had gotten a phone call early in the morning. They were letting us know that our house was on fire.
We were all really panicked and we rushed home.
It was a shock, it was surreal. We got home and sure enough our house was a total loss. We lived in a rental house for almost a year and rebuilt our house on the lot that our old house was on.
It was really a blessing to build a new house with my family, and I got to pick out decorations, and I saw this sign in the store that really resonated with me, and it was that family is forever.
It's been 8 years, and over those 8 years, things really changed after the fire. We learned a lot, and these past 8 years we've learned that materialistic things don't matter. What matters is family, and for sure God was with us throughout that whole time.
I think God was watching out for us because we were all together on that trip when sometimes we wouldn't go all together.
Now we know the real value in life is loved ones, and material things really don't matter. They're nice, but they're not really ultimately that important.
It was really sad to lose my childhood things, but it made me realize that that's not what's important. It's that family is irreplaceable, and material things you can replace, but family you can't.
So, we live and learn, and we get the silver lining is that we all have that life lesson and realize what's important.
For 4 generations, it has been in our family.
Everything in our family's happened with that car. It's been in no other family but ours since the day it came off the line.
Well, the Dart is a 1968 model vehicle, and it was bought by my dad, who was an engineer at Chrysler. He bought that for me to take to college when I was a senior. So after I graduated from University of Michigan and actually got a paying job, then I bought it from him. Took a job in California. We drove it across the country to California, and it's been in Southern California area ever since.
Everything in our family's happened with that car. Our kids were born. We took them all home from the hospital in that car, watching the kids grow and drive it themselves, and then have kids move off to college, and now grandchildren driving it. So it's been part of our family history.
I went to college in 1999 and came back in 2006. And when I came back to California in 2006, I purchased the Dart from Grandpa. Once my nieces and nephews were old enough to start driving it, then we transferred the ownership to my sister, I believe. I would say my best memories in the Dart are from my high school years. I think it afforded me relationships and friendships with people I might not have been friends with otherwise because they were interested in the car. That was really special, the relationships that I had because of the car.
Dart just goes the whole length, I think. Actually starting with your great-grandpa.
It wasn't just a random car he bought, it was part of his livelihood and his work.
That adds to the legacy because it started with his generation, got passed to Ken, and now then to our kids, and then now to grandchildren.
I think it's a symbol of how our family works hard and isn't wasteful. I see it as just a really special part of our family. We're so lucky to have something so fun to get to pass down to each generation, something that each generation has been able to claim and enjoy in different ways, but all, similar in terms of our appreciation for how special the Dart is.